Hello and welcome, I am Zabraxi, and I have a question for you. What is your favorite armor in World of Warcraft? Out of curiosity, did you happen to think of a full armor set? In fact, did you happen to think of a tier set in particular? If not, then congratulations, you've kind of ruined my whole video, so I don't really know where to go from there, but if you did think of a tier set, then great, you've proven my point, and we are going to talk about why WoW, BFA, and possibly Shadowlands has a real armor problem. Let's go. Since the launch of WoW, armor and set bonuses have existed. Over the years, there have been several systems that have aimed to further benefit the player in how their armor's stats interact with gameplay. Even beyond the gameplay implications, armor and many surrounding systems integrate so tightly to amplify the RPG element of character progression. Even more beyond that, a designer has to accept the aesthetics of armor that it matters arguably just as much, if not more, than the actual stats each piece inherits. Even more beyond the beyond of that beyond, you must marry the importance of aesthetics and statistics, thus leading to a logical conclusion of entire sets and set bonuses. And thus, the tier set was born. The thing is, I think it's incredibly important to remember that aesthetics and statistical benefits and gear are a kind of paired synergistic foundation for any successful RPG. Right out of the gate, Blizzard realized that armor sets would be necessary in order to provide what would essentially be a meta collection during your time going through endgame dungeons and raids. These sets gave players a reason to grind out content repeatedly, which bought Blizzard time to make new content, as well as keep subscriptions active. However, they severely missed the mark in the early days. Notoriously, Dungeon Set 1 and Tier Set 1 completely missed the mark. The set bonuses are all over the place, some giving stats or benefits that no one of that class would ever want. On the other hand, the look of the original Tier 1 sets looked like the quest screens until the official armor pieces were implemented soon thereafter. Tier 2 would mostly solve the set bonus problem by providing very useful buffs to certain classes, as well as unique benefits such as the exposed weakness effect from hunters, which would increase all physical damage that the target would receive. This was such a cool benefit that Blizzard actually turned it into a talent during the Burning Crusade. However, the original look of the armor was placeholder again, and wasn't solved for almost a year. Dungeon Set 2's introduction would mostly solve the stat and the aesthetic problem, but the set bonuses for some classes were still far from good. It wouldn't be until the very end of vanilla, in Naxxramas, when tier sets were finally given the golden seal of approval from the player base. The armors looked great, the stats were great, and the set bonuses benefited raiders in the activity that they received these items from. As time went on, tier sets would more and more attempt to match themes of their raid, and set bonuses would expand from class-based, to role-based, to even spec-specific. Because of this, a lot of class and spec identity was birthed from the armor itself. Every new tier of raiding would be met with people gathering around to peek at the data mined leaks of the new tier set, and to complain about how bad the male gear looks again. The spoiler of this story would be that Blizzard went and got rid of tier sets entirely. Why? How the heck if I know? You think I made this video because I know what I'm talking about? No. But the question remains, what was Blizzard's real problem with tier sets, and did the BFA solution actually solve the problem? No, their solution sucked. So let's go ahead and give Blizzard one good clap. In November of 2017, Ian Hazzikostas would do an interview with Game Informer where he'd break the news that tier sets would be ending. Among the interview, there are some key points he brought up as to why. First, quote, "The gear will be more heavily themed from the place it comes," end quote. Well, to be honest, they mostly pulled this off. Uldir is very clearly inspired by the Titan Keeper aesthetic, and Ny'alotha very much has this corrupted and otherworldly horror approach that honors Blizzard's goal. Then there's the Battle of Dazar'alor, where everything just looks like bones, which matches what of that raid? Jaina and bones? No. Rastakhan and bones? No. These sets break the rule of being inspired by their surroundings and the theme of the raid that they come from. Blizzard's second shot at this, Tier 2 of BFA, missed its mark. Currently, as it stands, 1/3 of their attempts is a failure, which definitely removed a lot of faith players had. Another issue with this first principle is more of a trade-off than a flaw, but it caused a lot of frustration. The fact that these sets would now be inspired by their location instead of the class added another level of class identity that Blizzard slowly stripped away throughout the years. WoW has had a serious problem of homogenization since Wrath, and for many people, no longer even having class-specific sets just meant the difference between a warlock and a mage shrunk even further. Also, I'd argue, can we still not just have both? Sure, class-based gear all relatively inspired by the environments is hard, but trying to sell players on receiving less options is probably harder. Oh, and how did I even forget this? But Blizzard actually already tried removing class-specific sets in patch 3.2, arguably the worst patch in the game. Players absolutely hated it then, so it's no surprise they still hate it now. The second point Ian mentioned is, quote, "There's more customization we want to express through the new Azerite system." End quote. Oof. Big oof. It's no secret that the Azerite system was mostly a failure. Loads of meaningless choices tied to unfortunate RNG drops, alongside a plethora of regularly broken, powerful, or useless traits, led to an expansion of frustration or apathy, depending on whatever camp you happen to fall into. The overwhelming majority of traits were passive effects that had no impact on gameplay at all, and only served as a proc or buff you'd ignore and only notice when you were looking at Warcraft logs. I've heard some people argue that tier set bonuses also fell into this trap, and you're right, some did. The difference though is that a tier set bonus would typically change each patch, which created a greater variety of gameplay kinda by default. How about the Blaster Master Azerite trait though? Well, if it's best at launch, excluding massive nerfs or incredibly powerful new traits, it will stay the best all expansion, thus never providing additional variety as the expansion continues. Oh, and that's exactly what happened. How about that? The third and final part of this quote is, quote, "Back in the day, these 8-piece sets you would put together over the course of 6 to 8 months raiding a zone, where now the smaller sets and so many sources of gear, it's very common to get 2 or 4 pieces at the start of a tier, and it actually kind of locks down these character slots. It limits your choices. It feels like more of a drawback than a strength at this point." End quote. I would like to give Ian the benefit of the doubt here, that he couldn't just come up with a good example, because unfortunately this whole claim is incredibly logically flawed. If we really unpack what he said here, we have the following argument. In the past, there were larger sets that would take a longer period of time to gather. In the present, you get the core of your now smaller sets in the first week or two. Hence, the problem is with the sets. No, Ian. The problem is with the systems in place that reward you gear faster than ever. Gear of which has no unique identifier outside of its item level. It's also a problem with the systems that allow the player to receive equivalently powerful rewards across incredibly varying difficulties of content. The problem is that outside systems have removed long-term gear progression from the game entirely outside item level hunting for slight upgrades to pieces you already have equipped. There are quite a few solutions to these problems too if you still wanted to keep all of these external systems in place. How about normal, heroic, and mythic all drop the same tier, but each difficulty up increases the total number of pieces in each set. For example, normal drops 5 tier pieces with a 4 set bonus like now. However, in heroic mode, certain bosses now also drop 2 additional tier pieces, allowing a 6-piece set bonus. Increase this another step up to 8 or 9 total pieces in Mythic, and we have an 8-piece set bonus, and you've created a whole extra layer of progression that would solve part of your problem while also incentivizing people to explore more difficult content. Another more contrived solution would just be to not allow set bonuses to inherit across tiers from different difficulties, which admittedly isn't a good solution, but it's still way better than just removing them entirely. There are still many more solutions I might explore in a separate video, but removal of this should be avoided if it's something that has succeeded in the past and now new systems break it. I have only scratched the surface of these problems, and I have a ton of ideas for other solutions, but I really feel like I should probably just wrap this video up. If you'd like to see more ideas from me in ways that Blizzard, I think, could actually solve some of their armor problems in ways that aren't obnoxious and ways that aren't incredible systematic overhauls, then please let me know in the comments down below. Maybe I'll actually make that a reality sometime. I love talking about game design, and armors are kind of key, or equipment in general is pretty key to RPGs. So if you liked the video and all that, hit the thumbs up button, thumbs down if you didn't like it, and subscribe if you want to see more of this type of content. It will be coming your way. So see you all in the next one. Bye-bye!